Bob Johnson with PK&W Model Works coming at you with another video. This time about our experience on the Royal Gorge Route Tourist Railroad in Colorado. Now this video is going to be in three sections. The first is going to be kind of an overview of the Royal Gorge Route Railroad. The second will be some of the history of the area that it operates and the geography there, which is very interesting, spectacular actually. And third, some tips about how I think you should ride the railroad when you go there to have both an economical and a good experience riding the railroad. So let's get into it. So the Royal Gorge Route Railroad is located in Canyon City, Colorado, which is, I'm going to say, 2 hours south of Denver Airport, so not a bad, terrible ride, 90 minutes to 2 hours. And there's ample parking at the facility. They have several lots. We got to park right by the depot, but they have some adjacent lots and really no problem accessing it. It's kind of on the far end of town, and Canyon City has got plenty of hotel accommodations. You don't have to stay at the B&B, probably pricier recommendations from the railroad, although I'm sure those are very nice. We just stayed at a chain hotel and it was fine. And there were restaurants available to eat. It was just fine. And some of the other passengers I recognized on the train stayed at the same hotel. The facilities at the Royal Gorge Route Railroad are really fantastic. The depot is pristine. The parking lots are all well paved. Everything is just very well maintained and organized. The equipment, the SD40-2 that pulled our train up the hill and then used its brake to manage us as we drifted back down the hill, was freshly painted, clean. All of the rolling stock was beautiful, stainless steel cars that were really nicely maintained and wonderful. And as I mentioned, it is a pull up the hill and then they push or brake on the way back down, and it's mostly braking. You're drifting back downhill into Canyon City. There's no real stop down at the end of the route. However, they do stop at one of the more famous spots, which is the Hanging Bridge. And so I recommend going to the car. They're there for quite some time, 20 minutes or so on the way back. Anyway, we stopped on the way back. And so you could work your way to the open cars that are right underneath the bridge and get some good pictures of it. So very cool. Meals on the Royal Gorge Route Railroad are spectacular. They have several galley cars where meals are cooked fresh on the train, and it was really very, very good. They rave about their food, and justifiably so. It's not dirt cheap, not that expensive. It's definitely worth eating their food, I think, instead of trying to pack a lunch. I don't even know if that would be allowed. But it certainly isn't required because the food is absolutely excellent. Now, we paid well over $100 each to sit in the Vista Dome car, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. I won't do that if I go back. More about that in part 3 of this video. Now, the Royal Gorge Route is through the Arkansas River has carved this spectacular, deep, narrow canyon, and the route of the railroad goes up the bottom of this canyon, and so the views are absolutely spectacular. You're right by, actually over the river in some occasions, and so it's really spectacular scenery, and I hope the day you go is as sunny and beautiful as the day was that we went. Now, the line was originally built to go to Leadville to serve the silver mines there. But ultimately, it became one of the primary ways to get around the Rockies before the Moffett Tunnel was built. And so it saw a lot of use back in the day. Now, at one point, the canyon is only 30 feet wide, and there was apparently no way to build a bridge pier in the Arkansas riverbed itself. And so at that point, there is one of the major, I think, railroad-related attractions of the line, which is the Hanging Bridge. So the bridge is connected to the wall of the canyon on one side, and on the other side it is hanging from a iron superstructure that was built across the narrow gap there above the train. So very unusual. I'm sure this has been modeled. Please tell me about it in the comments if you know where it's been modeled. It's really spectacular and interesting. So as you're making your way through the canyon, so you have to see the hanging bridge. Please make that a highlight of your trip. But as you're going up and down the canyon, don't fail to look up, because above you there are gondolas going by, there are zip lines, there are bridges going over this incredibly deep canyon that you're in the bottom of. And so it really is worth looking up and seeing all the spectacular stuff going on around you, in addition to the beauty of nature. And there'll be people, if it's warm enough weather, there will be people rafting in the river. We were there in the summer and they were doing that, whitewater rafting. So it's really a pleasant experience. Now, at the base of the railroad, after you're done with your ride, there's obviously a rich railroad history in Canyon City. I did not explore that very much, but there are bridges that tell a story that there were other railroads operating in Canyon City back in the 1800s, and so it's definitely worth paying attention to that maybe before you go, doing a little research on Canyon City and the other railroads that operated in the area. It could enrich your visit. Now, here's part 3 of the video, which is really about my tips for how to enjoy your experience. Don't pay the extra money for the Vista Dome car, in my view. The Vista Dome cars have their views somewhat blocked because the air conditioning has been added, which blocks the direct overhead view. So the view from the Vista Dome car is not really that much better than the view from one of the regular cars. So I would suggest spending much less money and getting more of a coach ticket. Obviously you're going to have a window seat, which is going to be fine. But this leads to my second tip, which is don't stay in your seat. You've got to go to the open cars. There's docents there telling you the history of the railroad. You can get spectacular views directly overhead, looking up the canyon, down the canyon, looking up, straight up to gondolas and things like that. So make sure you're using the open air cars frequently. You can go back to your seat and rest, obviously, but go ahead and do that. Just get out to those open cars. Now, the ride is 90 minutes, 2 hours long, and it really is enough time because the canyon looks the same, both coming and going. So, but keep your eyes out on the way up. If you miss something, you can usually catch it on the way back. So, now again, as I said earlier, I recommend eating on the train. The food is top notch. But, in the Vista Dome car, you have your own table and you would be eating right there in your seat. Maybe you want that, you want to spend the extra money, that's fine. But there are plenty of dining cars, bar cars, and other places where you can order a meal, where you can sit down and have a meal, and you're eating the same meal as they have in the Vista Dome car for less money, and you get to experience another part of the train. And so I really do recommend doing that. I think that would be interesting. You can dine with other people. It'll be it'll enrich your experience, I think. And again, be outside in a open gondola car when you go underneath the hanging bridge, either going forward or going up or going back. We stopped under the hanging bridge, and so you could really get up close and personal to it. And that would be a highlight of your trip as a rail fan, and I think you should make sure that you do that. And lastly, when you're back down in Canyon City and you've exited, and of course they have wonderful gift shops and things at the Royal Gorge Route Depot, you won't be short opportunities to buy mugs and t-shirts and just about anything you can imagine. But they also have a little dining establishment that is housed in 2 cabooses. And I recommend doing that. One is a wooden caboose, one is a steel caboose. And they make a nice cup of coffee there. You can get a snack or something. You've obviously had a meal on the train, so you're probably not going to be eating a meal. But you can get some ice cream, and they're really charming. And you get to go on board the cabooses and really and have a little look at some of that genuine. There are places to dine inside the caboose. You can get a cup of coffee and sit down, where real railroad men used to also have a meal on occasion. So very cool as you leave and end your visit at the Royal Gorge Route Tourist Railroad, again, which I highly recommend. Until next time, Bob Johnson with PK&W Model Works signing off. Keep on modeling.